Ever wondered why sunflowers and zombies are duking it out in your backyard? What do ancient Egyptian pyramids have to do with battling zombies in a suburban neighborhood? Prepare to have your mind blown by the absurd and convoluted storyline of the beloved Plants vs. Zombies video game franchise. The origin story of this chaotic universe begins in the year 2009. A quirky 36-year-old man named Crazy Dave invented the very first plant weapon, a simple pea shooter for a local science fair. Little did he know that this humble creation would spark a bitter conflict that would consume the rest of his life and shape the destiny of the entire world. You see, Crazy Dave's pea shooter ended up defeating the creation of one Dr. Edgar Zomboss, igniting a fire of rage and jealousy within the villainous doctor. Zomboss had always dreamed of becoming the ruler of the undead, but his failure at the science fair shattered those ambitions. So in a desperate bid for power, he spent the next 2 years feverishly studying the occult and the secrets of death itself. His dark research eventually yielded fruit, as Zomboss managed to uncover an ancient ritual that allowed him to reanimate the dead and create his own zombie army. Drunk on his newfound power, Zomboss immediately set his sights on conquering the sleepy town of Naperville, located somewhere on the west coast of North America, where both he and Crazy Dave resided. On the fateful day of May 5th, 2009, Zomboss enacted his dastardly plan. Hordes of mindless, brain-devouring undead poured into the streets of Naperville, threatening to overwhelm the innocent townspeople. Crazy Dave was not one to sit idly by, however, drawing upon his experience with a pea shooter and his knowledge of the strange powers of plants. He hurriedly constructed a whole arsenal of floral weaponry and set to work defending his hometown. Thus began the endless cycle of conflict between the zombies and the sentient plants commanded by Crazy Dave. The battles raged on, week after week, with Zomboss constantly scheming up new doomsday devices while Dave expanded and upgraded his diverse crop of botanical warriors. What fateful event in 2009 sparked the entire conflict between Crazy Dave and Dr. Zomboss? In 2009, Crazy Dave invented the first plant weapon, a pea shooter, for a local science fair. This creation ended up defeating Dr. Zomboss's entry, sparking an envious rage that led Zomboss to become a necromancer and launch an invasion of Naperville. How did Dr. Zomboss gain the power to create and command his own zombie army? Over 2 years, Zomboss obsessively studied death and the occult. He eventually uncovered an ancient ritual that allowed him to raise the dead and create his own unstoppable army of undead soldiers to carry out his dastardly plans. Unbeknownst to Crazy Dave at the time, another major storyline was unfolding behind the scenes that would become deeply intertwined with his own struggle against the zombies. During that initial invasion, 2 kids, Nate and Patrice Blazing, Dave's young niece, found themselves caught up in the chaos as their town rapidly devolved into a war zone. Their dangerous circumstances soon gave rise to a series of graphic novels that expanded upon their adventures as they helped Dave fight back against the zombies. Over the course of these illustrated tales, Nate and Patrice's personalities were further exposed and connections formed that would shape them into bitter enemies of Zomboss for life, with the chronology firmly established by the release of Plants vs. Zombies. In 2009, the extraordinary events started to rapidly accelerate. The very fabric of space-time itself was soon disrupted. It all traced back to a fateful day in August 2013, when during one of Zomboss's routine invasions, a zombie happened to drop some violently spicy hot sauce. Crazy Dave, being as eccentric as he was, could not resist the urge to snatch up the hot sauce and use it as a topping for his beloved tacos. The resulting taste must have been mind-blowing, as Dave immediately boarded his supernatural RV, a vehicle with the capability of traversing through time itself, and traveled back a few short minutes to recreate the delicious taco sensation once more. Little did Dave realize, his flagrant violation of the normal flow of time had created unknowable ripples through the space-time continuum. It just so happened that Zomboss was also in possession of a time machine, and he quickly detected Dave's meddling with the fabric of reality. Seeing an opportunity to spread his zombie invasion across history itself, Zomboss seized the moment. From that point on, both Crazy Dave and Zomboss were locked in a time-spanning chess match, each using their technological marvels to position armies of plants and zombies across eras and dimensions. Suddenly, the story introduced elements like pirates, Vikings, gnomes, and even alternate realities where the franchises crossed over with games like Subway, Surfers, and even Marvel Comics. What singular event caused the fabric of space space-time to unravel in the Plants vs. Zombies universe. In 2013, Crazy Dave used his supernatural time-traveling RV to go back a few minutes and re-experience the taste of a taco made with violently spicy hot sauce dropped by one of Zomboss's minions. This brazen act of time travel disrupted the normal flow of time with their continuous meddling in the rivers of time. The stakes and absurdity of the conflict escalated rapidly. What had begun as a simple battle for domination of a quaint little town swiftly evolved into high-stakes, time-traveling warfare spanning across the cosmos. At a certain point, the conflict was no longer simply Plants vs. Zombies. It was existence itself hanging in the balance, threatened by the sheer arrogance and carelessness of these two eccentric warlords. Nowhere was this more evident than in the advent of the Garden Warfare games, beginning in 2014. Here, the struggles took on a new dimension of seriousness and scale as Crazy Dave and Zomboss recruited heavily armored elite soldiers and heroes to lead their respective charges. Towering mechs and destructive sci-fi technology was now used on both sides with increasing regularity. The games depicted a disturbing level of warfare and violence on an almost apocalyptic scale. Tactical nukes detonated. Civilians were evacuated from the war zone as entire neighborhoods of Neighborville were converted into deathly fortresses. Crazy Dave was forced to bring in reinforcements from other eras like the mysterious time-displaced Rose and a superhuman mutant named Citron created from one of Dave's own deranged experiments. After hours upon hours of intense bloody conflict, the Plants emerged as the victors, despite the involvement of dimension-hopping gnomes seeking to undermine the efforts of both sides. But at what cost had this victory come? Vast casualties, unrecoverable destruction of property and infrastructure, and the unleashing of weapons of untold power upon a once peaceful community. How was the increased intensity of the Garden Warfare era conflict ultimately resolved? After hours of bloody, apocalyptic warfare, the Plants emerged victorious over the zombies, but at immense cost. Casualties mounted, infrastructure was destroyed, and terrifying weapons were unleashed upon the previously peaceful community of Neighborville. In the aftermath, the comics transitioned away from continuously building towards a climactic ending. Released more as one-off stories and weekly slices of adultment, they chronicled the two forces devolving into petty squabbles motivated more by ego and insanity than any true ambition. The two sides bickered over trivial things like forming competing book clubs, organizing traveling circus troupes, and dig cavern bases simply to undermine each other's achievements. The lines blurred between who were the heroes and who the villains. Both Crazy Dave's antics and Dr. Zomboss's schemes grew more deranged over time. Dave would regularly endanger civilians by choosing the most absurd and inadvisable of plans. Zomboss would give in to petty rage completely out of proportion to any practical benefit. In their limitless feud, they had doomed entire timelines to a hellscape of zombies scattered widely across history, simply to one-up each other for transient victories. Absolutely nothing was gained from these decades of conflict and madness. What theme became apparent as both Crazy Dave and Dr. Zomboss's actions grew more deranged and unstable over time? It became increasingly unclear who was the hero and who the villain. Both sides were defined by mindless patterns of insanity, deranged antics, and senseless violence and destruction for the sake of their egos rather than any coherent goals or values. Their limitless feud had doomed entire timelines simply so they could one-up each other. Crazy Dave continues to utilize his bafflingly wide-ranging connections to accrue power, plants, and military resources, while Zomboss just sort of does whatever he's been doing, building doomsday devices, acquiring more zombies by the minute, and constantly acting on the most petty of revenge plots. At this point, neither side even seems to seek any sort of lasting resolution, superiority, or winning in the traditional sense. They operate on dictates so basal and primal that they loop back around into madness. That's a wrap on our journey through the bizarre lore of Plants vs. Zombies. If you're hungry for more intriguing content, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. Keep defending those lawns and battling zombies.